This presentation is from the National Weather Service in Lubbock, prepared for the Texas Alliance for Water Conservation on August 26, 2020. My name is Jody James. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Lubbock, Texas. Here's a look at our office. We are one of 122 National Weather Service offices in the country. We have approximately 24 employees, 13 of which are degree meteorologists and forecasters. We're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and we're located on the South Loop in Lubbock at the Science Spectrum. Our forecasters monitor observational data, satellite imagery, computer models, and make forecasts and warnings for 24 counties in West Texas. And this is a look at our jurisdiction, if you will, what we call our county warning area, which runs from the southern panhandle down through the South Plains and the rolling plains of West Texas. As we look out at the weather outlook, I'd first like to talk about what's going on now. This is as of Wednesday afternoon on August 20th. This is the GOES 16 mesoscale sector, 1 minute imagery. Of course, this is just a static image of Hurricane Laura at 1:35 p.m. Central Time. This is approaching the Texas-Louisiana coastline near Sabine Pass, Sabine Lake, and will likely bring strong storm surge of 15 to 20 feet over some areas of southwest Louisiana and areas of heavy rain that will extend into southeast Texas. As we shift gears to look at the current state of our weather here in the West Texas area. First, looking at the drought monitor, this was the map that was released on August 20th of 2020. And as you can see, most of the southeastern portions of the United States have little to no drought going on. Most of the areas from the D1 all the way up through D3 and a few spots of D4 drought are mainly centered over the high plains of the United States, extending into the Rockies, the desert Southwest, and some of the Pacific Northwest into that extreme to exceptional drought. And the drought conditions have been slowly but steadily becoming worse across parts of West Texas. Here's a look at Texas. Most of the areas on the South Plains and rolling plains are looking at least D1 to D2 drought, with those red areas at least in the D3, and that is starting to get an extreme drought. And those counties include the southern panhandle from Palmer, Castro, Swisher, over into the areas northeast of Lubbock, and then also a few spots down to the southwest of Lubbock reporting extreme drought. And as you go east, though, things have improved and will likely improve even more over the coming weeks. But you can see extreme East Texas from east and southeast of Dallas down to Houston, and then the Rio Grande Valley showing no drought at this time. This is a look at the departure from normal, from bias-corrected rainfall estimates for the areas in North and West Texas extending into eastern New Mexico. This is departure from normal, so the scale on the right is inches below what the average or what we should have received for the past 90 days. And you can see the bright yellow, which encompasses much of the South Plains, is 2 to 4 inches behind on the rainfall. And then as you get into the tan areas, that's 4 to 6 inches. And we even have some 6 to 8 inch deficits from about Dimmitt and Castro County over into Floyd County and parts of Motley and Dickens County. So the drought has been becoming worse, and especially combined with the very hot temperatures that we saw periodically in parts of June and then especially into July and early August. This is the year-to-date departure from normal rainfall going all the way back from January 1st. You can see the same pattern generally, 4 to 6 inches in and around the Lubbock area and points to the west, northwest, and southwest of that. And even worse conditions, even a few areas of 8 to 12 inch yearly deficits up in the southern panhandle, near and to the south of Amarillo, back into the Tulia, Dimmitt, Silverton and in the Floydada areas. Even some above normal rainfall, at least when you consider from January 1st, in the southern rolling plains, where some areas have received anywhere from 2 to about 4 to 6 inches above normal. And this would be, again, through August 26th. One thing we also have been watching is the fire weather parameters, and there's plenty of those that we do look at. The two that I have on the screen here are the ERC, which indicates basically the amount of energy at the head of a fire, and then the Keach-Byram Drought Index, which shows basically rainfall deficits, how much rainfall. The 2 to 300, for example, on that map would be 2 to 3 inches ahead of normal. Most of West Texas, you can see, is in that orange, which would roughly be, to get a saturated soil profile, 6 to 7 inches, which pretty much matches up to what we saw on the rainfall deficit maps. Both of these show that fire potential is above average for this time of the year. Of course, many of the fuels, both grassy fuels and the larger brush and mesquite, are green, so we don't have a lot of dead fuels, although some of the grasses have begun to cure with the hot weather, the above average temperatures and lack of rainfall that we have received. So what this means going into the fall is we do cure the grasses. Unless we get a lot of rain, we're going to have a higher fire potential than normal into the early to mid-fall months. And we have even been seeing, even despite a lot of the greener fuels, we have been seeing some fire starts from high-based cloud-to-ground lightning. So those have been generally small, but this is just another indication of not only fire potential, but also reinforces the fact that we are in a drought. So now as we transition to looking at the forecast, we've been under this ridge of high pressure, which has been very stagnant, pretty hot weather, and not much day-to-day change, with temperatures generally above normal. But as we look at the forecast rainfall just for the next few days, 26th through the 28th, the main pattern there is, of course, the Hurricane Laura moving up along the Texas-Louisiana coast. And you can see that swath of rainfall, which in some cases is 10 to 15 inches or more, right along the Sabine River into western Louisiana. Some of that will extend a little bit into Texas from about Tyler down into the western suburbs of Houston, with even less from, say, Dallas to College Station. Not much rainfall out here in the Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, Odessa area, but that could change, it looks like, as we get into early September. So as we go out in kind of the short into the long range forecast pattern, one thing to note, the updated hurricane forecast, which came out for the Atlantic Basin in early August, did up the forecast even more. So we are expecting an extremely active season, according to Climate Prediction Center and the National Hurricane Center forecast. And, you know, we have seen that so far. And what that means for West Texas is some of these systems can come up our way. So if we do have a large number of landfalling tropical storms or hurricanes, those, of course, dissipate as they move inland, but they do increase our chances slightly of seeing some of that rainfall back into West Texas. But one thing we have noted over the years, most of those do curve or recurve to the north and northeast, and could affect more likely North Texas up into Oklahoma. We don't see a lot of Atlantic systems produce heavy rain out here on the high plains, but that does happen, as we saw with Hurricane Alex a few years ago. More likely is to see Pacific hurricanes coming across Baja and the Gulf of California into our area. But if we're needing rainfall, unfortunately, the Pacific hurricane seasonal forecast is near normal, but there is always a chance, especially as we get into September and October, of seeing some of that Pacific moisture come up our way, in addition to watching the Atlantic Basin. This is the cumulative precip according to the long-range models, one of our long-range models, the GEFS. And one thing I want to point out here, this is for the Lubbock area. You can see the red dot on the map. We start to see some rainfall, at least the models forecasting rainfall, around the 1st of September, and you can see some incremental increases in some light precipitation with a little over half an inch by the 3rd. Basically, this is a breakdown of the large upper level high pressure ridge. So even though we don't have a strong jet stream pattern to bring in strong disturbances, we will begin to see a few weaker disturbances in that ridge break down, and that will be an opportunity for some showers and thunderstorms occasionally in early September into the end of the second week of that month. And also just the fact that the ridge is not as strong will bring the opportunity for maybe an occasional weak cold front down into the area. So things looking up just a little bit. And as we look at the GFS model out over the entire model run, this would be out through the 11th of September. Now, again, this is just a model, but what we had been seeing is no rainfall or very little out when we looked at this time frame. So this is about 15 or 16 days out. And you can see in West Texas, we have anywhere from about a little under an inch, 2 inches in the Lubbock area, and then even heavier down to the south of Lubbock. Can't really depend on the details on this map, but what this is showing is the weather pattern is becoming a little more favorable for rainfall beginning in early September. And then this particular model, which is our main long-range model, the GFS, producing even more rain in that September 4th through about the 10th or 11th time frame. So that is good news, and it shows things are looking up, at least in terms of the broad weather pattern. Now let's talk about the ENSO, the El Nino La Nina phenomenon. This is the graph there shows the basically the upper ocean heat content. And you can see it was above normal, which is either neutral or maybe slightly El Nino-ish from October through March, but then it went negative into the May through August. So still technically in neutral. We have to average 3 months of below or above 0.5, and we're not seeing that yet. But as we look at our long-range forecasts for the ENSO, we see that those blue lines out as we get into the fall and winter are the largest category, meaning even if it's ever so slightly, La Nina is favored beginning in August through October and continuing through the winter. So if we're odds favor La Nina into the winter months. Now, what the La Nina means for us typically in the cool season is a dry winter, but the caveat to that is if it's not in the moderate or maybe strong category, then that correlation is not as strong. But it would be probably better if we're hoping for a real wet fall and winter to see that those red lines a little bit taller on that forecast graph. So right now we'll have to keep that. We're getting into the time of year where this has a higher predictability than it does in the spring or summer. So we'll have to watch this very closely and see if we do indeed go into a La Nina as we get into, especially in the October, November, December time frame. So right now we're in El Nino neutral. We do have a La Nina watch. So again, slightly favorable chances for that to develop. And it can be dry, but again, if it's just in the weak category, that's not necessarily the case. But if it does strengthen as we move forward, the odds favor to have a pretty dry winter. So as far as the outlooks goes, this is a kind of another way to look at the outlook, the temperature outlook. This is for the September, October, November time frame. Probability of exceeding the average temperature is basically what this map is showing. So for that time frame, as you get into the darker shades of red, you get slightly higher probabilities of exceeding the temperature. So basically a warm fall is what this is showing, at least favoring that to happen. As far as the precipitation, we can see not necessarily good news, but we see more of the browns, and that's showing the probability of exceeding the average precip to be negative in the negative category. So at least for if this forecast does work out from about Kansas down into Oklahoma into West Texas and then back into the Central Rockies and Great Basin, it looks like the odds are a little higher to see a dry conditions, or at least below average precipitation distribution for that September, October, November time frame. So again, we'll have to watch this. This probably somewhat based on the La Nina, but again, there's a lot of other factors that go into this forecast, including just the long-range models, the existing soil, moisture, and various other things as well. So that is the forecast and a look at the longer range outlook. Hopefully we can get some more rain into the area. We'll have to watch the tropics with that extremely active season. If you do have any questions or comments about this presentation, here's my contact information at the National Weather Service on the South Loop in Lubbock. There's our office phone, although I am working out from my home most days unless I'm working on shift in the forecast area. So that mobile number would probably be a better way to reach me. And then you can see my email address there in our Lubbock website. A couple of the web links from some of the imagery that I pulled off for this presentation. There's the National Weather Service Lubbock website on top, the National Hurricane Center website, and some of the long-range 90-day outlook type graphics that I pulled from the Climate Prediction Center, and there is the URL for that. Thank you for listening to this presentation.